Imagine a calm afternoon in the park, sunlight drifting through the trees, and a retired officer walking with his loyal German shepherd. Nothing unusual, until the dog suddenly stops, lifts his head, and unleashes a powerful bark that silences everything around him. All eyes turn to the source of his alarm, a little girl standing alone, hugging a pink backpack, her eyes wide with fear. The officer steps closer, the wind pushing leaves across the grass like a warning, and the dog refuses to back down. His teeth bare, his muscles tense, his gaze locked on that one small backpack. In that moment, no one knows the truth hidden inside it. No one knows a mother is missing. No one knows a trap has already been set for midnight. All they see is a child, a dog, and a mystery unfolding in front of them. If you want to follow this story of instinct, danger, and a miracle hidden in the shadows, please subscribe, leave a comment, and thank you for supporting these powerful, true-to-life stories. Late afternoon sunlight washed over Riverside Park in Southern California, painting the walking paths in warm gold while the early autumn breeze drifted lazily between the tall sycamore trees. The temperature hovered in that pleasant space between warm and cool, but the wind carried enough crispness to remind people that summer had ended. Joggers traced the perimeter trails. Families spread out picnic blankets across the grass. Children played on the wooden playground, and the whole park hummed with a peaceful weekend rhythm. Jack Morgan walked slowly along the concrete path that curved past the lake, his hand resting on the leash of his German shepherd, Rex. At 43, Jack looked like a man carved from grit and long days, tall and broad-shouldered, with arms still toned from years of field work. His short black and silver hair and the faint scar running from the edge of his chin to his jaw hinted at past battles. His face held a rugged, square-set resolve, softened only slightly by the tired calm in his dark blue eyes. Even retired from narcotics enforcement, Jack walked like a man who never truly left the job. He scanned people instinctively, measured footsteps of strangers, listened to the rhythm of the environment. Old habits never died. They just slept lightly. Beside him trotted Rex, an 8-year-old German shepherd with a proud, muscular frame and a thick sable coat streaked with deep black across his back. His amber eyes were sharp, intelligent, always working, seeing what people missed, hearing what people ignored. Rex's gait usually carried the composed confidence of a veteran K-9 officer, every step calculated and controlled. His years in dangerous operations had made him steady, disciplined, and remarkably intuitive. When Rex walked, people often stepped aside without realizing why. There was something unmistakably authoritative about him. But on this day, the first sign of trouble came in a simple shift of Rex's ears. They angled sharply forward, his tail stiffened, his muscles locked. Jack noticed immediately and tightened his grip on the leash. "What is it, boy?" Jack asked quietly. Rex didn't respond with a look. He responded with a sound. A deep, explosive bark erupted from his chest. It wasn't playful. It wasn't startled. It was a warning. Parkgoers froze. A jogger paused mid-stride. A mother on a nearby bench pulled her toddler closer. Jack felt the leash jolt in his hand as Rex lunged forward, barking with renewed intensity, each bark louder and more urgent than the last. "Rex, heel!" Jack commanded sharply. But Rex didn't heel. Instead, he pulled harder, claws scraping the concrete. Jack braced himself, leaning back to counter the sudden force. Rex rarely behaved this way, never without cause. In the entire time Jack had partnered with him during narcotics investigations, Rex had never false alerted, never lost control, never misread a threat. Jack's pulse quickened. Rex lunged, again, dragging Jack forward several steps before he regained his footing. And that was when Jack finally saw the source of Rex's fixation. Near the wooden slide of the playground stood a little girl. She looked no older than 8, with long, wavy brown hair cascading over a pale face marked by freckles across her nose. Her frame was small, almost delicate, and she wore a light denim jacket slightly oversized for her tiny shoulders. Hugged tightly against her chest was a pink backpack, decorated with faded cartoon stickers. Her green eyes, wide, shiny, frightened, were locked onto Rex with growing panic. The moment Rex barked again, the little girl flinched violently. "I didn't do anything!" she cried, her voice trembling, cracking midway through the sentence. Her fingers clenched the straps of her backpack, as if letting go would make something terrible happen. Jack raised his free hand in a calming gesture. Hey, sweetheart, it's okay," he said, voice low and steady. "Nobody's blaming you. You're not in trouble." But inside, his instincts sharpened. Rex did not do this to children. Rex didn't do this unless he smelled something very, very wrong. A few people nearby drifted closer, drawn by curiosity and tension. Whispers started to ripple through the circle forming around them. "Why's the dog doing that? Is she okay? What's in the bag?" Jack moved slowly, hands raised as he approached the child. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "can you put the backpack down for me? Just right there on the ground." The girl shook her head violently and hugged the bag closer. "No, I can't," she sobbed. "Mommy said not to open it. Mommy said to keep it with me." Rex barked again, deep and resonant, lowering his head as he took an alert stance. Front legs rigid, tail straight as a pole, nose forward. Jack recognized the posture instinctively. It was Rex's narcotics detection stance. A cold chill crawled up Jack's spine. His voice softened but grew firmer. "Sweetheart, I need you to trust me. Just set it down for a second. I promise you're not in trouble." The little girl's lower lip trembled. Finally, with slow, shaking hands, she bent down and placed the pink backpack onto the ground. She stepped back immediately, clutching her elbows as if bracing for something terrible. Rex surged forward. Jack barely had time to loosen the leash before the dog pressed his nose hard against the side of the bag. Rex inhaled sharply, then let out a low, throaty growl, not aggressive, but urgent. Jack's breath caught. He dropped to one knee beside Rex. "What do you smell, boy?" he whispered. Rex answered with another growl, clawing lightly at the bag. Jack swallowed, reached forward and slowly unzipped the top of the backpack. Inside were crayons, a small lunch container, a folded sweater, and beneath them, an all too familiar chemical scent drifted upward, sharp, bitter, artificial, impossible to mistake. Jack froze. He had spent 15 years chasing that smell in dark alleys, cartel warehouses, and makeshift labs hidden in motel rooms. It was narcotics. His chest tightened. Why was it inside a child's backpack? He looked up at the terrified little girl, then down at Rex, whose ears remained locked forward like arrows. Something was terribly wrong, and it was only the beginning. Jack guided the frightened little girl toward a quieter corner of Riverside Park, choosing a shaded bench beneath a towering sycamore tree whose branches draped overhead like a natural shelter. The late afternoon breeze rustled the drying leaves above them, casting shifting patterns of gold and shadow over the ground. The lively noise of the playground faded behind them until only distant laughter and the soft whir of passing bicycles remained. Emily Parker, small and fragile, sat stiffly at the edge of the bench. Up close, she looked even younger than 8. Her long brown hair, tangled from stress, framed a pale face dotted with freckles. Her green eyes were swollen from crying, and she held her elbows tightly, as though trying to keep herself from shaking apart. Her denim jacket hung loosely on her thin shoulders, giving her an even more vulnerable appearance. Jack crouched in front of her, resting one knee against the cool ground. His voice softened into the tone he had once used when comforting frightened children at crime scenes rather than interrogating suspects. "Emily," he said gently, "I need you to tell me what you know about the backpack, anything at all." She shook her head immediately, eyes darting nervously between Jack and Rex. "I don't know anything. Mommy told me to bring it to school. She said not to open it. I swear I didn't know what was inside." Her voice broke on the last word. Jack studied her carefully. In his years as a narcotics officer, he had learned to recognize lies in a heartbeat. But the fear in Emily's voice wasn't fear of being caught. It was the fear of a child in danger. A child who had been used by someone else. Rex, who had been scanning the perimeter with military precision, suddenly froze. His tail stiffened, and his ears snapped forward like arrows. A deep growl rumbled from his chest as he fixed his gaze toward the line of trees just beyond the bench. Jack's eyes followed Rex's. A woman stood half-hidden behind the sycamores, tall, thin, wearing a dark, fitted jacket and black jeans that clung to her long legs. Her posture was rigid, almost too still, like someone trained not to draw attention. Her hair, straight, jet black and glossy, hung down to her shoulders, contrasting sharply against her pale skin. Even from a distance, Jack could see the sharpness in her features. High cheekbones, narrow jawline, lips pressed tightly in a line. There was nothing random about the way she watched them. Jack rose carefully, muscles tightening under his worn denim jacket. "Emily," he said quietly, "stay right here. Don't move." The woman stepped back as if realizing she'd been seen. Then she ran. Not in panic, not stumbling, but with smooth, trained efficiency, like someone who spent years needing to outrun people. Rex exploded into a bark and lunged forward, leash yanking taut in Jack's grip. Jack struggled for a moment, bracing his feet, forcing Rex to stay. "Rex, no!" he commanded sharply. Letting him chase now could create chaos, or tip off whoever was behind this. Emily suddenly burst into tears, her voice cracking as she cried out, "Mr. Jack, she's not my mom." Jack turned back sharply. Emily stood trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her small hands pressed to her face. "My mom, my real mom, she's missing. She didn't come home yesterday. I waited and waited." Her voice dissolved into sobs. Jack's stomach tightened. He knelt beside her again, placing a steady hand on her trembling shoulder. "Emily, when was the last time you saw her?" She wiped her face with her sleeve, trying to speak through her sobs. "Yesterday morning. She packed my lunch and tied my hair. She walked me to school." A pause, a trembling breath. "But she didn't pick me up. A neighbor took me home. And then she never came back." Jack felt the familiar weight of a case settling on his shoulders, something he hadn't felt since before he retired. Emily's mother disappearing, narcotics hidden in a child's bag, a trained woman watching them, a child targeted for a reason she didn't understand. Jack stood slowly, scanning the park again. The woman was gone, vanished into the maze of trees and walking paths. Rex whined softly beside him, restless, sensing the urgency in the air. Jack tightened his grip on the leash. Emily wasn't lying. Rex wasn't wrong. And the truth they were stepping into was far more dangerous than he'd expected. The sun had already begun its slow descent when Jack arrived at the Riverside police station with Emily and Rex. The station sat at the edge of downtown, an older brick building weathered by decades of service, its walls lined with climbing vines and its windows reflecting the fading amber sky. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly, contrasting sharply with the tense energy gathering in the room. Two officers met them at the entrance. The first was Officer Daniel Hayes, a man in his late 30s with a broad chest, a thick brown beard trimmed neatly along his jaw, and eyes that carried the permanent exhaustion of someone who rarely slept without interruption. Daniel had spent most of his career responding to violent crime scenes, and it showed in the permanent crease between his brows. His voice, however, remained steady and warm when he spoke to Emily. "You're safe here, sweetheart," he said gently, guiding her inside. The second officer, Megan Carter, stood just behind him. She was in her mid-20s, lean and athletic, with short blonde hair cropped just above her ears and sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. Megan was still relatively new to the force, but her determined posture and quick-thinking presence hinted at her ambition. She greeted Jack with a respectful nod and glanced down at Rex, whose alert posture made her instantly cautious. Inside one of the examination rooms, a forensic technician laid out the contents of Emily's backpack in neat rows. The technician, a thin man with wire-framed glasses and a quiet demeanor, spoke softly as he worked. The narcotics, compressed into tight, uniform packets, were unmistakably the work of professionals. Jack's stomach tightened the moment he saw the packaging. The seals, the powder density, even the faint chemical scent, it all matched a nightmare he thought he had left behind. Miguel Black Viper Hernandez, a name he hadn't spoken aloud in 3 years. Black Viper had been the most elusive trafficker Jack ever hunted. Tall, cruel, with a jagged scar slashing across his left eyebrow, the man was a genius at staying invisible. During an undercover operation gone wrong, Miguel had orchestrated a trap that cost Jack his partner, his closest friend. That was the day Jack's world cracked, and it remained the reason he retired earlier than planned. The memory flickered across his mind like a bruise being pressed. Now the same packaging lay in front of him. "It's his work," Jack muttered, jaw tightening. Officer Daniel exhaled sharply. "Hernandez? Here? After all these years?" "He never left," Jack replied. "He just went deeper." Before Daniel could respond, Rex suddenly tensed. His ears shot forward, and he let out a sharp bark that echoed off the room's metal cabinets. "Rex?" Jack followed the dog's line of focus. Rex pulled toward the hallway, toward the office where Emily's belongings had been placed. Jack grabbed the leash and hurried after him, weaving through desks until they reached a small side room where Emily's jacket lay neatly folded on a chair. Rex pressed his nose into the jacket pocket and pawed aggressively. Jack frowned, reaching inside the pocket. His fingers brushed against something thin. Paper. He unfolded it slowly. A small, crumpled note. The handwriting was rushed, crooked, almost frantic. "If you want to see her again, bring the bag to the old warehouse near the docks, midnight. Come alone." Jack's pulse spiked instantly. Daniel and Megan exchanged shocked looks. "This is a trap," Megan said immediately, her voice tight. Jack nodded. "Yes, but it's also their first mistake. They want the drugs back, and they're willing to risk contact." Emily, who had been sitting quietly in the adjacent room with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, looked up as Jack walked back toward her. Her face was pale, fragile, but her eyes searched his with desperate hope. "Is it about my mom?" she whispered. Jack knelt in front of her. Yes, and I'm going to find her. But they want you to go alone, Emily said, her voice trembling. What if they hurt you? Jack smiled softly, though his heart ached. For a child who had every reason to be afraid, she still cared more for someone else. I can take care of myself, kiddo, he said gently, and Rex will be with me. At the sound of his name, Rex pressed against Jack's side, tail stiff but loyal as stone. Megan crossed her arms, frustration tightening her shoulders. Jack, you can't go in there blind. We don't know how many people he has. Daniel nodded. It's suicide. Jack stood and faced them with the calm steel of a man who had accepted danger as part of his blood. This isn't my first dance with Hernandez. I know how he thinks. And if Emily's mother is alive, this may be our only chance before they move her. Silence settled heavily. Finally, Daniel exhaled. Then we prepare backup. Quiet, hidden, completely off-grid. Jack nodded. Good. But remember, if they suspect anything, they'll kill her. He looked down at the note again. Midnight. Old warehouse. By the docks. A familiar darkness surfaced in Jack's chest. The same fury and determination that once drove him through cartel hideouts and abandoned motels. Miguel Hernandez had resurfaced, and Jack would face him again. Midnight draped the abandoned dockyard in a cold, metallic darkness. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, curling around the rusted steel containers that towered like silent giants across the shipyard. The only sounds were the distant groan of shifting metal, the soft slap of waves against concrete, and the steady breathing of Rex as he walked at Jack's side. The old warehouse loomed ahead, its exterior layered with peeling paint and graffiti, the windows shattered into jagged teeth reflecting the moonlight. It was the perfect place for an ambush, isolated, forgotten, and far from helping hands. Jack wore a black tactical jacket, the kind he had sworn he would never put on again after retiring. His jaw was tight, eyes sharp. His hands moved with practiced precision as he checked the tracking device hidden inside the decoy backpack. Beneath the last street lamp before the dockyard, Rex stood alert, muscles coiled with anticipation. The 8-year-old German shepherd moved with the controlled tension of a soldier returning to the battlefield. His thick sable coat bristled in the cold air, ears pricked, amber eyes scanning every shadow. Tonight, he wasn't just a companion. He was a weapon Jack trusted with his life. Emily was safe at the station, guarded closely by Officer Daniel Hayes and Officer Megan Carter. Jack had looked her in the eyes before he left, promising he would bring her mother home. That promise burned in his chest now like a brand. Jack stepped through the half-open warehouse door. The air inside smelled of rust, dust, and ocean salt. A single overhead bulb flickered weakly, casting a trembling circle of light across the concrete floor. The echo of Jack's boots seemed too loud in the cavernous space. Then, a faint sound, a shuffle, a whisper of movement. Rex snapped to attention, growling low. From the shadows, figures emerged. 4 men stepped forward, each wearing dark clothing and black fabric masks that hid everything except their eyes. The way they moved, confident, deliberate, told Jack they weren't amateurs. Their builds varied. One tall and lean with broad shoulders, another shorter but stockier with thick forearms, a third wiry with nervous energy in his stance, and a fourth slow but heavy-footed, as if weighed down by muscle rather than fat. Behind them came a familiar figure, the woman with long black hair. Up close, her appearance was even more striking. She was tall and slender, with an angular face and icy pale skin that looked almost ghostly in the dim light. Her dark jacket fit her like armor, emphasizing her rigid posture. Her expression was blank, too blank, like someone who had trained herself to feel nothing in moments like these. Her eyes held the kind of calculation that only came from years of working in dangerous, covert roles. She stepped forward. "Put the real bag on the floor," she said, voice cool and controlled. Jack held up the decoy backpack. "This is all you're getting," the stocky masked man snarled, clenching his fists. "Don't play games, old man." Jack didn't flinch. "You picked the wrong child," he said quietly, "and the wrong dog." The tall masked man lifted a gun. Rex barked, one sharp, explosive warning. Everything erupted at once. The stocky man lunged first, but Rex was faster. Like a bullet, Rex launched himself into the man's chest, jaws snapping onto the padded fabric of his sleeve. The impact sent the man crashing against a row of metal crates. Jack moved instantly, dodging the tall man's swing and delivering a strike to his ribs, then another to his jaw. Years of training flowed back into his muscles, each movement sharp and efficient. The wiry man attempted to grab the decoy bag, but Jack kicked him backward, sending him sprawling. The heavy-footed man charged next, but Jack ducked and used his momentum to flip him over onto the concrete floor. The black-haired woman didn't move at first. She watched, calculating, cold, until she realized her crew was losing. Then she bolted toward the exit. Jack saw her. "Rex, go!" Rex dropped the stocky man instantly and sprinted. His claws scraped the floor as he launched forward, overtaking her in seconds. He cut her off, growling, blocking the doorway. She froze. Her calm cracked for the first time. Jack handcuffed the remaining two conscious men before turning to her. Her mask of control shattered into anger as he approached. "You have no idea what you're stopping," she hissed. Jack's jaw hardened. "No, I know exactly what I'm stopping." He moved past her toward a stacked row of containers partially hidden at the far end. Something tugged at his instincts. Rex had glanced that direction earlier. Jack yanked open the rusted metal latch. Inside, tied to a chair, bruised but alive, was a woman in her early 30s. Emily's mother. She had amber-brown hair matted to her cheeks, soft features tense with terror, and a petite frame wrapped in a torn blouse. Her hazel eyes widened when she saw Jack and Rex. You're not with them," she whispered, voice cracking. Jack quickly cut the ropes. "Emily's safe," he said firmly, "and you're going home." Her knees trembled as she stood, leaning on Jack for support. Rex nudged her hand gently, tail low but calm, sensing her fear. Behind them, the masked criminals lay defeated. The truth was clear now. This group had been using children as unsuspecting couriers to move narcotics past detection teams. Emily simply happened to be one of the children they selected. But tonight, their operation ended. And midnight at the docks became the moment Jack Morgan reclaimed everything he once walked away from. The first rays of dawn stretched across Riverside like soft watercolor strokes, casting a gentle glow over the police station's courtyard. The chaos of the previous night had finally settled, leaving behind a quiet morning filled with relief, exhaustion, and the fragile hope of a new beginning. Jack Morgan stood near a picnic table outside the station, leaning casually against its wooden edge. His black tactical jacket from the night before hung loosely over his shoulders, worn open as the cool morning air brushed against him. His tired but steady gaze followed Rex, who sat a few feet away with the same calm dignity he carried into danger, chest broad, ears alert, his sable and black coat glistening under the sunrise. A small burst of footsteps broke the stillness. Emily Parker sprinted across the courtyard, her tangled brown hair bouncing behind her like a banner of newfound freedom. Her face, still smudged with drying tears from the night before, now glowed with relief and overwhelming gratitude. The moment she reached Rex, she threw her arms around his thick neck, burying her face into his fur. "Rex saved my mom. Rex saved me too," she whispered, squeezing tightly. Rex leaned into her embrace with a gentle huff, his tail giving a slow, reassuring wag. There was something remarkable about how quickly the dog, trained for danger, sharpened by years of tension, could shift into tenderness when needed. A few steps behind her stood Emily's mother, Olivia Parker. In the morning light, she looked more human than victim. Her soft, amber-brown hair washed and pulled back into a loose ponytail. Her hazel eyes warm despite the tired shadows beneath them. She was petite, but carried a quiet strength, the kind forged by surviving what she had just endured. Her pale skin, bruised the night before, now seemed to hold a touch more color. "Thank you," Olivia said softly to Jack, her voice trembling with emotion. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Jack offered a small smile. "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of her. That's all that matters." Inside, Daniel Hayes exited the station holding a clipboard. In the morning light, his rugged features looked even more pronounced. Thick beard, broad shoulders, tired eyes softened by genuine respect. He approached Jack with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Captain wants to see you," Daniel said. "They're impressed, real impressed. They, want you back. Full reinstatement." Megan Carter followed close behind. Her athletic frame moved with the brisk confidence of someone with big dreams and little fear. Her short blonde hair glinted under the rising sun, and her sharp gray eyes studied Jack, waiting for his reaction. "You could do a lot of good if you came back," Megan added. "Most people wouldn't walk into something like that after retiring." Jack looked between them, then at Olivia and Emily, and finally down at Rex, who met his eyes with steady loyalty. Returning to the force meant plunging back into the world he'd fought so long to escape, the world that cost him his partner, the world that hardened him. He exhaled slowly. "I appreciate it," he said, "but I'm not coming back." Megan blinked with surprise. Daniel simply nodded, as if he expected this answer. Jack continued, "I've spent years chasing people who ruin lives, but last night reminded me there's another way to fight back. Not by hunting criminals, but by protecting the people they target." Daniel crossed his arms, leaning back slightly. "What are you thinking?" Jack glanced at Emily, still hugging Rex. The idea he had been shaping through the night finally settled clearly in his mind. "There are kids across this city living in dangerous neighborhoods," Jack said. "Kids who have no idea they're being used. Kids who don't know how to protect themselves. I want to start a volunteer program. Educational, hands-on, community-based." Olivia stepped forward, intrigued. "What kind of program?" Jack smiled faintly. "Teaching children how to recognize danger, teaching parents how traffickers operate, working directly with schools. And Rex," he looked down at the German Shepherd. "Rex will help train them to identify dangerous substances. No child should ever end up in Emily's situation again." For the first time since they met, Megan's stern expression softened into something warm. "Honestly, that might help more people than a badge ever could." Daniel clapped Jack on the shoulder with a heavy hand that nearly rattled his bones. "If you need help setting it up, you call me." Jack nodded gratefully. Olivia knelt beside Emily, gently smoothing her daughter's hair. Did you thank Mr. Jack properly? Emily nodded fiercely, then ran to Jack and wrapped her arms around his waist. Thank you for saving my mommy. Jack's heart softened. He placed a hand on her back. You were brave last night, braver than most adults. When Emily stepped back, Rex walked to Jack's side, posture relaxed. Jack crouched slightly, brushing his hand through Rex's thick fur. Well, partner, he murmured, we did it. Rex lifted his head, eyes bright, and gave a single soft bark, low, confident, and full of quiet pride. Jack smiled. We've completed our mission, old friend. Rex wagged his tail once, as if answering, always ready. And as the sun climbed higher above Riverside, a new family stood reunited, a new purpose was born, and Jack Morgan, retired narcotics officer, reluctant hero, stepped into the morning with a future shaped not by violence, but by hope. In the end, what happened to Jack, Rex, Emily, and her mother wasn't just the result of courage or skill. Sometimes, in the darkest corners of our world, a light appears in ways we cannot explain. Some call it instinct, others call it destiny. But many of us, especially those who still hold faith close to their hearts, know it by another name, a miracle from God. Maybe God works through the people we least expect. Maybe He works through a retired officer who thought his purpose had ended. Maybe He works through a little girl torn by fear. Or maybe, just maybe, He works through a loyal dog with a heart trained not just to detect danger, but to protect the innocent. And if we look closely, we might realize that miracles don't always come wrapped in shining light. Sometimes they walk on four paws. Sometimes they show up right when hope seems lost. And sometimes they remind us that God still watches over us, even when we don't see Him. As you go back to your daily life, your family, your home, your ordinary moments, hold on to this. Every day, God still sends small miracles to guide and protect us. All we need to do is keep our hearts open enough to see them. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who could use a reminder that goodness still exists. Leave a comment, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of hope, faith, and the everyday miracles God places in our world. May God bless you, protect your loved ones, and fill your days with peace and light. Amen.